Welcome to Ritual Scale Modelling. This is part 9 of Revell's Vasa. Scale is 1 to 150. In part 8 I began the rigging process. So in part 9 I'm carrying on with this process. So this is the rigging part 2. In the first part, rat lines and the main lines, rigging lines onto the deck. The rat lines, not every rat line is on at the moment. There's still one or two to go on for the bowsprit. But the I should have explained in the first video as well, they're not just rat lines that are going on. These are the lines that hold on for the sails and things like that as well. That's actually been put in place. So now that I've got all that cleared up, let's jump into this, to the next stage, and see how well I get on. And now for the next stage, I'm having to work on these little pulley blocks. And as you can see, I've got my pin drill here, and I'm having to create the holes for this because they're not molded into the block itself. So I'm using a very thin drill bit, and that's getting placed in between the two wheels of the actual block. Now I should point out, these blocks were actually attached to the deck. And I've taken them off. I wasn't sure how I was ever going to do it at this point, but I should have prepped these before laying them down on the deck. But they were only secured with a little bit of cement anyway, and they just simply popped off. I do this from time to time. I will only secure things very lightly until I'm finished with the build. Then I'll just go around and make sure everything is still attached and that. It's just one of my quirks that I do. I wouldn't recommend doing it like that. Always look at the instructions and see if there's any advanced areas that you have to go through. So anyway, now that I've made the hole, I'm just opening it off slightly with my knife to make sure that I can get the needle threader through. I should point out also there's two holes in each block that I have to drill out. So I've drilled them. I'll just hold it with my hand. Maybe you can see the tiny little holes that I've drilled into these. So now that the holes are drilled in the main block, the next block to be drilled is the guardrails around the mast. Again, I've taken them off the ship to drill these. And these are going to be drilled in the same process. So I say there's 3 blocks there, and there's 2 guardrails to be drilled. And I'm only drilling these in the actual block that's connected to the guardrail. So the thicker bit below the actual bar where the guardrail is. They molded the blocks to the guardrail, which they do on a lot of ship kits, just to make it easier for the builder, I would assume. But if you haven't to drill the holes, it makes it a lot more difficult for the builder to deal with. And as with the scales in the previous video, I'm using my threader to push through the hole in the block to thread it through. So the cord goes inside the metal loop of the threader, then I can just pull the whole unit through, and then I've got my cord going through the block. I should say this particular cord, I'm using the thinner part of the cord because this is just making a little loop which then will be attached to the main block. So there's 2 loops going around each spindle in the block before getting attached to the main guardrail block. And I'm just repeating the process on the block using the threader, threading around the block to create the connection. As I said, and I'll keep on saying it, there's no hard or fast way rule to do it. You can do it with separate pieces of cord, or you can do it with one cord all in one. Doesn't really matter as long as you're happy with the look at the end of it. That's all that really counts. But what you're looking for is 2 loops of cord going from the main block to the secondary block, and the secondary block then will have 1 piece of cord to complete the actual rigging part that goes up into the mast. And I have to do this for both blocks on the guardrail. So you can see the loop formed, and I'm just going to be now attaching the secondary block. I've already done one, you can see it there. And just attaching the main line to the secondary block. So if I just pull it taut, you may be able to see it, how it should look. There's the line, so there we go. So you've got the guard there with the main lines coming up. The single blocks are much the same way, but of course it's just one single piece of cord running through the actual block itself. And once it's all done, it's just a matter of reattaching them to the deck. I had to lift up the stays a little bit, make sure that I didn't put them over the stay. The stay's got to go over the guard. Otherwise, I'd run into trouble when I was actually bringing those lines up to the mast. It would just look strange. So they're attached to the original location points. They weren't damaged or disturbed as I took the parts out. But when you're working around, sometimes it's easier to use clamps and that just to keep those lines taut and out of the way while you're doing it. But when you're doing this, just bear in mind the space and running out of, and looking at ways just to help you get these parts in. But now you can start seeing why I'm placing in the anchor points first on the deck before running it up to the mast. But of course you have to be careful as well. You don't want to snap anything off. And guess what I did? I snapped something off. And it was the mizzen mast that I managed to snap off, as you can see there. So that's bloody annoying, but luckily it was right at the base, and it happens to be an easy fix. I must have just rested my hand on it or something like that. I didn't actually realise I snapped it off until the following day. I went to move the model and it just fell off. So what I'm doing here, I'm just taking my pin drive and drilling a hole in the base of the mast. And then I'm taking a cocktail stick and placing it inside the hole that I've driven into the mast. This acts as a little anchor point as such to help secure the mast. If you are going to do this, be careful. You don't want to open up too much. Just do a little pilot hole and then gradually open it up with your knife until you're happy with the circumference. Or then just drill out the part of plastic that's still inside the hull, and then open that up with my knife. And once I was happy with it, it was just a matter of then replacing the mast using a combination of super glue and normal cement. The super glue is for the cocktail stick, and the normal cement is just for the mast itself. So it was an easy fix. So this is will end part 9. So if you haven't done so already, why don't you subscribe to the channel? If you do, hit that notification bell and you'll be kept up to date with not only this build but of my future builds as well, of course. Hit that like button. Don't be afraid to leave a comment. And of course you can share the video. But for now, thank you all very much for watching. Bye bye.